I can teach anyone how to tint a window. Tinting a window isn't hard in my eyes. It just, I mean, yes, I've been doing it for 2 decades.
You clearly have never tried to teach me to tint a window. I am far from like a technical, accurate.
But you have the one trait that I'm looking for, though. You're coachable.
Hey.
It would be easy.
Hey, there we go.
It would be easy.
I am a workhorse. I will say that. I'm like point and shoot. There you go.
Yeah. See, I would have no issue at all teaching you how to tint.
This is going to be content at some point. We're getting you in the academy.
I know. That would be hilarious.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Born to Tint podcast with the Miller brothers. I'm glad to be here with my big brother, Josh.
How's it going, everybody? Today we have a very special guest, Aubi Foster with CrossFit Social City. And what's your consulting?
Hype Girl Collective.
Check it out.
Or whatever. Tuesday is like a team Tuesday, so it's always like a partner workout. Wednesday's weightlifting Wednesday, so it's always like a little more front end technique, a little slower, and then like a quick Metcon at the end. Thursdays is always like knees over toes, and then more of like an EMOM.
We should go to Thursday morning.
Yeah,
dude.
it's like
Let's
good because it's kind of like Thursday. I always tell people it's like longer, so it's more volume, but it's nice because it's every minute on the minute. So then you can decide how fast you want to go. Like if it's 40 seconds of work, whether you do 20 reps or 10 reps, like you're kind of in your zone. Where a lot of people don't want to come in for that like 3, 2, 1 go, like, you know, like full intensity. But.
I think I can make Thursdays because I'm just thinking about my schedule if I'm actually on a training block. Tuesday's speed work, I think Thursday's speed work too.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not running more than an hour 15. So going at a 5 a.m. class, I can still
Well,
get my
teaches
running.
Thursdays too, and it's like that's a fun one. Thursday's 5. I'm Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh, you're Tuesday, Wednesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
I can still make those.
Yeah.
What was Wednesday again?
Wednesday's weightlifting. So we're in deadlifts. We're in a deadlift cycle.
You know what
this
we should
month.
do? The week,
I like that.
we should, the week this is going to come out, we should schedule to try to hit as many of those as possible for that week.
That'd be
and
fun.
we can make content on it. And
As long as it's the
put it
week
up.
after SEMA.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I forgot SEMA's coming up.
Well, the only reason why I say that is because beyond we have, so what, now 2 weeks, 3 weeks? No, I have 2 weeks. You have 3 weeks because the third week you'll be here. You'll probably be finished up. But we
You guys have
like,
races coming up too?
well, we have the academy's being built out right now.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. You guys put out that whole room.
So we have to have
So cool.
The studio is going to be in that room. So
Yeah. That's the move.
the deadline that was set, or it wasn't a deadline, it was a request to which I said I was going to make it happen if I could, is we switched over from we were carrying 3M's autofilm, and now we are our Solar Guard Select Shop. So we're like one of their, I guess,
Like premier
Yeah,
shops.
premier shops where we pop up at the top of the search page and all that stuff.
Yeah.
With that, they also partnered with us to help us stand up the academy. And then we told them where the podcast studio is going to be in the academy. So everything branded around us is our brand, but also they're there too.
Dude, that's sick.
So they jumped on board with that. And like the only request I got from like the head guy was, it'd be really cool if we could walk people through it during SEMA because they have people coming from South Korea, coming from the China plant.
That's so sick.
And
you
I was
two.
like, all right, I think we could do
yeah,
this.
I think we could work that out.
Well, my
No
sister
problem.
Michelle kept pushing back on this. Like, you're doing too much on the show. We have to get this done. Like, timeline is this week. I know there's too much going on.
I
right
love
now,
that
but
the
it is
three
what
of you
it
guys
is.
are working together. Like, I have to tell you, there's this part of me that's so envious because I look at my dad's business and I'm like, God, I just wish one of us like was remotely in that space to like see. Because I remember growing up like in your parents' shop, you know. So it's like now to see where it's at. It's like, dude, it's so cool that you guys kind of all made your way back, and then seeing how all three of you work together.
Yes.
I don't know how it'd go with like me and the sisters all doing it, but it'd be interesting.
we have our days.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh,
The what you see on here is actually the best.
But it's also like no one's gonna care as much as you guys care because you guys saw it from like the ground up,
Yeah.
and I think that's like
That's
there's
where it can get
something
heated, I
so
think.
for
Yeah.
sure. But at least it's rooted in the best of intention.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like it's not the intent of ego. It's the intent of like you guys have seen it from a different angle than anybody that could ever be in your shop will ever understand.
Well, I think that's where we got really lucky. I mean, my his overarching dream always was for us to run the company. If anything, us all go into the company at the same time and run the company together. I think that would have been a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
How it went with Michelle being kind of part of just answering phones and like, no, I'm going to college.
Yep.
Went and did her thing. Josh was in it, but those two together were oil and water. So he stepped away, but where he went actually was perfect. The fact that he joined the military.
Yeah.
So he got to be around a hierarchy system of seeing leadership from aspects I've never seen it before.
Totally.
Because I'm the one I was just stumbled in and just kind of stayed. But with him coming back with the experiences he had, and then also Michelle coming back with the experience she had with the different corporations she worked for, it was the perfect merger of you had the one who stayed, who was there just kind of like, I stuck him insulated in my own little bubble. I knew what I knew. But then you have the hierarchy of the leadership that what he brought to the company, and then the corporation aspect of Michelle going like, no, this is technically how this corporate, like this is how this works on the back end of if we're going to get bigger, stuff like
how
this.
do you scale?
And then us merge all of our experiences together. We all can, we all have something to give to the pie that like when it comes to the HR and all that nonsense, that's the show. I got
For sure.
nothing to do with it.
For sure.
When it came to actually bringing structure to the company, we're actually having a hierarchy of like letting your guys succeed.
Yeah.
Lead by example, but it's also give them the rope to go figure out what they need to figure out. Otherwise, how are they going to grow? Like, without those aspects coming in when they did come in, I don't think we would have the success that we have right now.
It's so cool to watch though, guys. Like it's been cool for me because I've obviously like known you guys for so long. Like I said, like thinking about your parents' shop and then having a family business on our side too, where it's like I've seen the hours that my dad's put in, and I always have this thing in me where I'm like, man, I just wish that construction or remodeling or of some level was my cup of tea, and it's just not. Like we've all worked in it, but
but you know what though? You think about it, like what are you doing right now? You're
still
a pretty
building.
hardcore entrepreneur, and
for
you're
sure.
running a business, and like you learned lessons from your dad that you're applying right now,
sure.
like 100%. Like even having that drive to want to do it, to know that you can be successful running your own business, like, that's there for sure. You know?
I mean, without a question. I mean, my dad's influence, like hands down, is like the biggest influence in my life. I feel like I'm like a mini him with like a ponytail sometimes, but like it's the same thing. But I think because my grandparents had started it, you know, that idea of legacy is just so cool.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's what my dad is kind of like, I don't want to say we butted heads on, but I've mentioned to him before, like if anyone, which 2 years ago, even a year ago, we weren't structured, or at least we didn't have the right credentials to actually sell the company for what we would probably think it's worth when it comes down to it.
For sure.
With what we've been doing for the past year and a half, 2 years, I want to be able to build the company to a point. I'm not saying I am selling it.
No, but it's the option, right?
If someone comes along with a big enough chunk of money, they say, we want to buy this from you.
Yeah.
And it retires my parents where they don't have to worry about money no more.
Yeah.
And everyone within the company, everything is taken care of. No one, would never accept anything that would end up hurting any person that's ever worked for us.
Sure.
Or make sure everything's set within the boundaries where it's like, you got 2 years to show that you're as good at what you do and you deserve what you're getting paid. I think you are, but now you have 2 years to show it to the next person.
Totally.
If that happens, I'm 100% taking it.
100%.
Like, well, my dad pushes back because he looks at it like he wants one of our sons to kind of take over. And I try to explain to him, like, Dad, where your legacy continues now is what we're building at the moment. And if without you, we wouldn't be able to, is in the academy, is passing the teachings along where it all comes down from you. It's your lineage tree that produced both of us. We won our championships because of the quality you've taught us.
Yeah.
And now we get to expand that into the entire industry.
Yeah, it's like it's beyond the brand name at this point, right? It's like that ripple out effect of like the impact of what the brand has done. And sometimes that stuff is not as easy to see on the front end, but that's like really where the magic is. Like I think any brand I've worked with, whether it's like our own internal brand or when I was in corporate, it's like that's the secret sauce. It's like the ripple effect beyond like just what the logo stands for.
Yep.
Like I always tell people there's a difference between like a logo and a brand.
Yep.
You can have a really well-known logo that's very well respected, or you can have a brand that has a reputation and a feeling, like something that lives. When I was in beverage, I'd say beyond, like something beyond the packaging, behind the bottle, behind the can. Like what are they visualizing? What are they thinking? What are they associating it with? That's where magic happens. That's legacy. So it's taking it into like the future, right? I mean, I do some marketing stuff with my dad, so I definitely understand the balance of how things were. Like we were just talking about websites, and I was telling him like your Google reviews. We have to focus on your Google reviews, and just kind of that pushback of understanding what it is and trying to get them to like get a little uncomfortable. It's because you guys are pushing them though.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. He made it. Unfortunately, I won't say he, but like the unfortunate circumstances made it to where it was instantly
time.
We got to go implement what we wanted instantly.
Yeah,
and it's at a point now. Really, where it's at a point. It's like shop's still running, right?
It's okay.
We're doing good. All right.
Yeah.
Don't stress about money.
That was the same thing that happened with my dad too. My grandpa was diagnosed with cancer like right when they were pregnant with me, so they didn't think that he was even going to meet me. He lived till I was 5, but it was like an overnight thing where it was like as soon as that kind of happened and his health started going down, my dad went from being a support person on the staff to really having to like manage it. And at that point, the majority of the family was in the company, both of his brothers, their wives, I think like an uncle and things like that. So it was like an overnight thing of taking that over and the sticky points that happened in changing the cruise ship direction, right? Of like from old to new and new leadership and stuff. So I commend you guys, man. That's like, it's not easy.
No, it's crazy too, is like, it takes us having a get together where we do like a quarterly event and like we'll take the whole shop and all their spouses and kids and boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, to like a Knights game. Yeah. And every time we've done that, I like kind of sit towards the back and I just look at this giant group of people and it's like the shop and what they started and what we've continued is like responsible for a lot of people. And it includes like most of my family. You know, like if the shop was to fail, I'm not just doing it because I need a paycheck. And it's like if I can make this successful, it's going to help all of them, including people that have been with us since, you know, they were teenagers. You know? Like, so it's not, and that's family too to me, you know? So it's like,
that's like the family you get to choose.
That's not the part you think about when you think about like running a business. No. And at the initial, it's like, oh, I'm going to be financially free or whatever.
I'm going to have so much time. I'm going to work on my schedule. Don't you love that? People that have never owned a business say that. They're always like, oh, if I, you know, it must be nice owning your own business, just run your own hours. You're like, you clearly have never actually owned your own entity, have you? Because that's not exactly how
that's
that works.
been the wild part from that 2020 shift till now is, you know, I'll put in an 80 or 90 hour week, and that's only what I'm actually clocked in for. And I still have customers texting and calling and stuff, and it's like when you have all of those other things to worry about rather than just the install for the day, it's a world of difference. And then when you're still trying to fill those roles too, where sometimes you are installing.
Oh, and then you're wearing all the hats.
So that's the one thing we've been working on like crazy is like really trying to empower people to take over a position and like pull ourselves out of seats as much as possible and empower people more.
It's management is, I always say management is a skill, it's not a role. And it's something I think a lot of times that, like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's like, by the nature, if you're really good at what you do, the nature is that you're probably going to climb that ladder and whatever, whether it's your own business, a family business, corporate, whatnot. But we spend very little time focusing around leadership and like developing those skills. And then also, if you're the best installer, it's really hard to train a team to become the best installers and not want to, like, let me show you how to do that. And like I always say, people can't sprint if they can only see 2 feet in front of them, right? And a lot of times managers, by the nature of wanting things to be done correctly, will only let their teams have 2 feet at a time of visibility. It's like they're never going to become the momentum that you need them to underneath you to elevate the entire organization or yourself or your program or whatever it is, if you don't give them the freedom. And also give them the freedom to also kind of mess up a little bit, because I think that's part of the learning process. It's like if you stub your toe once, that hurts bad enough sometimes that that's the lesson you need versus keeping them in a safety box.
100%. That was a big thing Ricky was talking about earlier that I learned in the military.
Yeah.
Like the structure of the military is like your job, especially once you become a non-commissioned officer, isn't necessarily complete the mission. It's like your job is to train your guys to replace you.
Yeah, totally.
And then the person that's in charge of you, their job is to train you to replace them. So that's like naturally happening in there. And you can't do it by doing everything for them.
No.
So it's like, but the crazy thing is there's this huge flexibility I've discovered. There's just thinking about it just now. The military model, you can break shit. Because you're not paying for it.
Yeah. Yeah, way different. Way different.
So on the business side, I get the apprehension to do that because especially for a small business.
Yeah.
And if you don't have extra money in the bank, you know, somebody scrapping some film or breaking something.
Totally. Might cost you money.
Yeah, you might not be able to make payroll this week because of it. So it's like that's where they're not the same.
But I think that also comes down to like how we do hiring, right? And I think even that becomes an art, like figuring out whatever industry you're in. It doesn't matter what industry I was in, whether it was like beverage or cannabis or other consumer good products or our own business. Like the way we hire people has always been such a focus for me because I've built teams. And knowing out the gate that there are some things that you can't teach and there are some things personality-wise that it just there's a need for success. And I'm always open to giving people opportunities to show up and develop and grow. But it's kind of starts in that process. It's like easier to be picky on that front end because there's nothing worse than getting someone in the system. You've trained them up, whatever it is, and then you're like, ooh, you're not coachable.
Yeah.
Like you don't want the feedback, or you're not hungry, or you don't have like personal accountability to be able to even like own your mistakes.
I 1,000% agree.
Like
that's
been
a big lesson we've learned over the years of hiring. Is like that's our focus right now. Is those things.
If we fall into someone who knows what they're doing, but they have that trait, awesome. That's the one person we're always looking for. But at the same time, if you could be the best installer in the world, but if you aren't, if you're not coachable at all, and you already just think you can't learn anything else, we're good.
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
I'm good.
It's like I'll take the person that we need to take a little more training with. Like coaching's like that as well. It's a balance, right? We want technical coaches to ensure like the highest safety and efficiency in the way that you're lifting and that you're actually getting an education. Like we're definitely not a facility where you're coming in. There's very minimal instruction. Like we're focusing.
Here's the bar. Go to work.
Yeah, I mean there are definitely places like that, right? Where it's like you go in, it's like warm ups on the wall, or there's no real focus around form, and so you want that technicality in a coach, but man, you also want somebody that's like very coachable, that has this like personality that really enjoys people, because if you don't like people, then coaching's probably not for you, right? So we've over the time we've always recruited internally. That's been like a blessing. We've always had enough fruitful people in the gym that we've been able to recruit from that area, but a lot of times it starts with personality. Like, do they connect with people? Do they have high EQ? Are they able to like really fill a room with energy and kind of help dictate the mood? You know, if people come in and are moaning and groaning about what's on the board for the workout, like, can they take that and shift it into being like, okay, like we're going to do hard things. Like, that's why we're here. Like, we're here to grow. Or being able to dictate whether it's like that coaching cue's landing correctly or what kind of mood. Every class is its own ecosystem. Like your 5 a.m.ers are way different than your noon squad. Like your noon squad is like our boys group, like lunch break, come in, conspiracy theory talk, like always busting each other's chops, all this stuff. And then our 5 a.m.ers, like they're waking up. We always say they're like our go-getters because the only excuse is the alarm clock, right? Yep. So it's fun. You have to be able to almost have a social chameleon that can kind of pull those things out, because you can always coach technicality.
Yeah.
That can come, right? That you can teach a skill. There's some personality traits that you definitely can't coach. No. You either got it or you don't.
No, I 100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. That is probably the biggest thing that we're looking for when it comes to hiring, is that I can teach anyone how to tint a window. Tinting a window isn't hard in my eyes. It just, I mean, yes, I've been doing it for 2 decades.
You clearly have never tried to teach me to tint a window. I am far from like a technical, accurate.
But you have the one trait that I'm looking for, though. You're coachable.
Hey.
It would be easy.
Hey, there we go.
It would be easy.
I am a workhorse. I will say that. I'm like point and shoot. There you go.
Yeah. See, I would have no issue at all teaching you how to tint. Like we have the door right there. This
is going to be content at some point. We're getting you in the academy.
I know, that would be hilarious.
We're making
Remember
a video.
that time Aubi said she couldn't tint?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm actually a bomb tinter. You guys didn't even know.
You can buy it off of Cam Haynes, the lift, run, shoot.
Yeah.
Do something with something.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Tint.
That would be really
that'd
fun.
be fun.
Actually get hands on with tint, just with random people.
I bet would probably be like
tint
really
run.
good at it.
Tint run.
Wow,
What's the last
bite
one?
It completely.
yeah, just bite it.
You guys are just proud of Omar. He just did his first 21-mile run.
I know. I saw him.
He almost like died on the backside of Red Rock. I tried to advise him that was like a bad decision, but
I followed it on social.
Yeah.
I even commented on it. He's doing the Vegas Marathon.
Yeah.
I commented on that, like, hey, we should run the Vegas half.
Yeah.
In February, and he said he was down. He's like, I'm doing the full. And that's in
November 3rd, I think, or the 2nd. I think it's the.
So they kept the full in November, but they moved everything else to, because it used to be all in November.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll had everything.
Rock and Roll's in February now, right? Because I think I did that 10K.
Rock and Roll had everything. It was a marathon, half, and 10K.
And now it's just the half, right? Half and a 10K.
And half a 10K and I think a 5K.
So this is the party.
Yeah.
Dude.
The half is fun. Actually, a half is my favorite distance.
I've done 2 halves. One that was like an official time thing in a race, and then like 3 days later, I went out and did it by myself just to like see the difference, and it was massively different. And then as soon as I was done, looked at me. He's like, "Well, why didn't you just do the full?" I was like, "Oh, come on! Like that was my bucket list, was do a half." I was stoked I did the half, and I like broke 2 hours, like barely, but I was still like stoked on
that's
that.
killer.
I mean, I was like, I'm not a runner.
Sub 2 is a big deal. Sub 2 is a
good.
big deal for men.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it, dude.
No,
So,
that's
but now
good.
he's doing the full because he always has to like one up me a little bit, but that's all right.
So it's fine. So let's do a 50K.
Okay.
That's just a little further.
Just a little. I always think
Good
about
6
that though.
miles.
I like every time you guys post, I'm always like, man, it's just so. I love movement because I think everyone can like find their thing, right? Like people always ask us like, what's the best way to get in shape? I'm like, whatever you can show up to the most consistently. Like honestly, whether that's Pilates, walking, running, CrossFit, powerlifting, whatever. It's the consistency, but I love that there's always something to discover in movement because there's always something that's intimidating around the corner. Yep. And I think now we're in this point where it's like we're a little addicted to that, like uncomfortable. We're like, ooh, this is hard. Like let's go that direction. Yeah. So whenever I'm like running, I think about you guys. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just ran a 10K and that kicked my butt, and then I'm like a 50K.
It's a different pace, though.
For
honestly,
sure, but
the
it's
10K
still...
can feel just as hard. If you're running that 10K hard, that's gonna suck.
Yeah, it all depends on the pacing. Yeah, you know. It's, like
says the runners.
Well, like when I look at myself, when I go to the races, like I'm just the guy who's finishing.
Yeah,
I'm just showing up. You have the guy that like Tahoe this year. A dude ran it in 18 hours and 30 minutes.
Wow.
It was, I think, just under 19,000 feet of elevation gain.
Yeah,
like, and the dude looks.
Human beings are incredible.
He
right?
looks happy and joyful every time he passed me. I saw him, I think, 3 or 4 times. I was just like,
he's laughing.
Yeah, I'm like, oh god, like good for you, man.
Totally.
Like, this is amazing what you're doing. And like, I think he picked the pacer up at the very last section. He could have picked one up earlier. He was like, yeah, I'm good.
Oh my god.
And he was just hauling ass too. 18:30. He's moving.
Yeah.
So he had a good jog going the entire time, and I was just like, dude, good for you, man. And
I
like,
just
never
think that's the part
tired.
that. The part about movement that's so cool is like looking at what humans are actually capable of, right? Every time we think that there's a record, it gets broken.
Yeah, you see
right?
the marathon world record for women went down yesterday. Sub 210, first time ever.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Chicago marathon.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's like the 3rd time it's gone down in the last like 2 years. All these world records just keep getting smashed.
It's crazy.
Everybody's sharing nutrition knowledge, cold plunging, recovery methods, like all of this stuff.
Recovery. I mean, it's crazy to see how recovery has become the new name of the game, right? I mean, I was in consumer products, my last like corporate gig, and we were specific in like fitness equipment and looking at recovery. And it was crazy to see that trend switch over because it is like that. Before, it was always the methodology of like in your training, right? Yeah. And there's still things that are happening in that space of like what the secret combo is or what rest days or what are your active rest days, what's your accessory work, whatever sport you're in. But now how recovery has really become this mainstream conversation now. The accessibility to cold plunging, way easier. I remember before it was like you couldn't really find anything. You were makeshifting. I mean, ours is like a deep freezer, right?
That was my first one.
Yeah, we bought it off a biohacker, and it was already preset.
Oh, see, I had to make mine. And I had to like silicone the edges. And I didn't even add the liner to it. I just siliconed the edges. But now I'm to one of those disposable.
Yeah, we have one of those in the backyard, but the amount of ice. For that. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it was a little bit more costly than the freezer. I really should just, but we put food in it now, so like I stopped using it and then we started using it for food. Should probably try to just find another one and do that again because that was the easiest. I mean, I got that thing for like $100. It was almost brand new when I got it, and I used it every day for a year before I stopped using it.
But how do you switch your water out?
That was the problem.
We siphon it out, and then we have like a little filter that we attach to the outdoor hose, so it's filtered water going in, and then we use Epsom salt and a little bit of peroxide and test it after.
Now that I've got the filtration system that I've got on my current one, I could adapt that to the freezer. You drill 2 holes in it, and I could connect that to where that's filtering it, and then I could.
And we also have a filter that's in there that's smaller. That once it's in there, but it's like we usually just always then it really becomes more of the maintenance for us of like showering before we get in and trying to keep it as clean as possible for longevity.
Because that's why first Brooke and myself are the ones using it every day, and our rule is you got to shower right before getting in.
Yeah.
Because I'll switch the water entirely over like once a month, but like the filtration I have is so good that it stays looking good.
Yeah, it's not bad. You know what I mean? Even after a month, it's like not too bad, but it's just like for top of mind. What temp are you guys doing it at right now?
45.
Yeah.
I haven't been pushing it down low because the more I read about it and the more I hear people talk about it, it's like if you go lower, you can make the time shorter. You don't necessarily need as much time, but it's like that is cold enough that it's uncomfortable.
Totally.
Yes.
And it's probably giving us the response that we want.
Totally.
So,
I think I always tell people, like, when they ask, I'm always like, anything I think under 50 is good.
Yeah.
And it's really, I think, whatever just makes you uncomfortable. Like, if it's something that makes you a little bit nervous, I think that's like the sweet spot, because the actual benefits, like at that and below, are almost the same.
Yeah.
But people, we do it at 32, and everyone asks us why, and it's like, because it just makes it that much harder.
Yeah.
And it just makes it. Then 45 starts to feel not like a vacation by
Yeah.
any means, but it's like as it's starting to cool back down, you're like, okay. But I'm like, it's the thing that makes it hard, that hesitation to get in. Because I think that's where the growth happens.
Totally.
Like, there's growth that happens, and there are benefits that happen in the cold plunge, but it's the decision to get in. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's the magic. If you can learn to flex that muscle of discipline,
Totally.
of like, I'm going to do the thing I don't want to do, and I know it's going to be hard. Not, I wonder if this,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard.
No, that's the part I love about it. That's like having Brooke got it. The only reason I got the chiller was because I was doing ice.
Yeah.
And I was getting back into it because I did it 4 or 5 years ago religiously, stopped. And then because she's gotten so crazy into running and at such a high level, I started doing it again not this year. So 2023, like January-ish, but putting ice in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And I was using the deep freezer to freeze buckets of water so I didn't have to buy ice. And I would go down in the morning and I'd grab those and I'd fill the tub up. And it's like, then I'm like, man, I'm wasting so much water. This is such a pain in the ass. So I bought the chiller setup that I realized I could put in the shower downstairs once Brooke started doing it with the ice with me. So when I was doing it with the ice, I was like, you should really do this. This will be good for recovery for running and a good way to start the day. She started doing it with me, and that's when I was like, okay.
How old is she now?
16.
Holy cow, dude. You're raising a monster. That's so rad.
Well, in London, her sister won't do the cold plunge, but she's crushing it too. Like,
that's how Sayla and Uriah are. Like, Sayla is 4 and loves cold plunging, and she just PR'd her mile. I have to tell you guys this, my runner friends. So she's been running with Omar, because O's been doing his mile a day for like 90 something days now. And she's been running with him. Uriah every once in a while too, but Sayla at 4 has been running. She PR'd her mile yesterday at like 14:25.
Nice.
And like was racing. They like will walk a pole and then race a pole, but it's just been crazy. Like, she is so his mini, and just she's got that thing that scares me a little bit, because she also like enjoys cold plunging. Like we'll pull out her little like side bend, we'll put ice in, and she's like gotten in, and then she'll put her feet in the actual plunge. Same thing. Gabby's son Liam, my nephew Liam, is also like comes in cold plunges. They're both 4. I'm like, so cool. Just like wellness outing at Auntie's.
Matthew,
that's normal.
My 5-year-old, he keeps saying he wants to do it, and there's been like 4 or 5 times that I'm like, all right, and he'll strip down, and I'm like, all right, here we go, and like as soon as his legs are in, he's like, no, let me get
I know,
me
that's
out.
more Uriah. It's crazy.
He's attempted it 3 times now, and all 3 times he's immediately given up.
But I think like how cool is it going to be to like watch this generation of the parents that are awake to like this health and wellness and the crisis that we have going on in the United States with metabolic health, like the people that are actually awake to it, our children, what they're getting to witness from the parents that are awake, like it's planting the seed of a generation in such a different way than anything that we grew up with, right? Like from a female perspective, for me, fitness was always kind of like a punishment when I was younger. It was to lose weight. Or, I ate something bad, right? Like, especially the 90s, like for girls, or early 2000s, like how thin can you possibly get? And I was at an arts high school nonetheless. So even having an athletic frame, like talk about feeling like an odd man out, because I wasn't playing sports. We had no sports. So I'm walking around at like almost 5'8", like broad shoulders. Like, I don't have anyone that looks like me. So I always learned that movement was a punishment or like an afterthought to a bad decision on diet or out of self-hate, where it's like now there's this whole generation of kids that are growing up where it's like, okay, cold plunging is just like a normal part of what we do, and eating the way that we eat is not punishment, it's a gift. Movement is a gift. It's fun. Like I always say, I have 2 goals: heaven over Harvard. I want my kids to know God. I want them to have that freedom and peace, and then I want movement to be as normal as brushing their teeth. And I don't care what it is. Like, could be walking, could be baseball, basketball. I don't care. It's just to know that it's a gift and that you can do it, and it's not a punishment in any sense, especially for my daughter, like so big. So for you to have a 16-year-old girl that like is embracing this, it's like, man, what is she going to be at 25?
Well, what's funny is
cool.
like I've always, when I got crazy back into running, I would always be like, hey, you guys want to go for a run?
Yeah.
And she's the one that would actually say yes.
Yeah.
And so she just, that stuck with her.
So
Still
cool.
to this day, like we go on Sunday trail runs, and London, my younger one, who's running cross country right now and actually doing really good.
That's so cool.
She still is like, no, I'm good.
So
it's like, it's definitely not been any kind of forced thing.
No.
And I've made sure, like, if you're doing it because it's fun and you like to do it. And she
Yeah.
definitely is like me now, as far as like, she wants to go for a run in the morning if she
Yeah.
doesn't have practice that day.
Yeah.
Because she knows that she's going to feel better throughout the day.
I always say too, kids do as you do, they don't do as you say.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like I always try to look at my life through a lens of, if my kids were doing any of the things that I'm doing in any area, would I sit back and be proud? Are those the things that I wish for them? Are those the friends that I wish that they had? Is that the respect level that they have for themselves, for others, or whatever it is? Any lens of my life, it goes through that, because I always think, if I'm not doing that, then why would I ever think that they do? Whether that's inviting the grandparents over to have dinner because I want to be invited to their house. I want to be in their lives. Like, it changes the filter in which you do everything, I think, when you have kids. And I never expected that. Like, I always knew I wanted to be a mom, but I think I was so caught up in corporate that I never understood that my life was really going to start in like the most challenging, beautiful growth cycle period when I had my kids. And then once I did, I was like, oh man, this is like the secret life hack. If you're a decent person and you have a child, this is the life hack. Because it wakes you up. And if it doesn't, then there's something, I think, like deeper inside of you that's broken. Because how do you not want to be better for them?
Oh, no, absolutely. That's what got me on my journey.
Yeah.
And that's when I signed up for my first marathon. Was the first night I held my son at the
Oh,
hospital.
really? Dude.
I had been talking about like I was getting back into running. I was getting healthier, just trying to get healthier.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he was born, I was like, all right, I'm signing up. Because I knew if I signed up,
then you have
to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's how my dad raised us. Like, if you spent money on it, you're doing it.
Yeah, you're doing it totally.
And then
totally.
if you're going to attempt something, like first time I tried football, he's like, just letting you know, you're not quitting this.
Yeah.
Like, you might not like it, but you're not gonna. And that's always stuck in my head. If I start something, I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah.
I might not enjoy it. I'm gonna see it through.
But it's discipline.
Gonna get through it at least. But yeah, no, that's what got me onto the running was the marathon. Then after doing that marathon, seeing other people go out for the longer distances.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to know that pain because I'm wrecked right now.
Yeah.
How are they still going?
Totally.
I want to see what that feels like. And that's just the rolling effect it had all the way up to then getting to the 100-miler.
It's such a crazy thing, right? Like that curiosity, like if you can get that itch, I think some people stop at that though. I think we all have that thought, right? No matter what space you're in, if someone is better than you at something, whether it's creative or physical, and someone passes you, there's always that curiosity of like, how did they do that? Or what must that feel like? I think most people stop there though, right? They stop at that moment of curiosity and they don't continue with that itch to be like, well, what's it like on the other side? And the what if? Like, what if I tried that? And it's crazy because I don't think that I really embraced that mentality until like my mid-30s. And it's like, oh, and I keep talking. I'm 39. He's just turned 40. And I'm like, I feel like I am just getting started on starting to unlock these levels. And also at the point too, like I love this age because I'm like, I don't care what people think as much.
Yeah.
Like I use I always thought approaching 40, especially as a female, I was like, oh no. I mean, the Golden Girls also were like typically like 41. I don't know if you guys know this, but like real talk, they were like Blanche was 41 in the Golden Girls. So I swear, true story.
No
so
way.
it's like 40s for us, like growing up probably looked a little different. But I always thought approaching that age as a female that I would just be like, you know, pushing on the brakes and chasing youth and wanting the younger version. And I just, part of me is like, no, man, I can't wait till the 40th floor.
Wow.
Like it is just getting better for me. Like everything in my life feels like it's evolving in a beautiful way with intention. And I think that's the difference, is realizing that you really can craft the life that you want. Like you can have all these dreams, and I think we all do when we're young. We're really good at dreaming, and then something can kind of happen in your 20s and 30s where you get kicked in the teeth a couple times, the way life will do that to you. In whatever areas, it could be friendship, business, personal life, family stuff, whatever. And then a lot of times we just allow that to kind of keep us from that growth cycle. And it's like now at this age, I'm like, man, there's so much opportunity. The fact that I want to do the stuff that scares me, and that I just realize the more uncomfortable I get, there's more growth on the other side, and there's more to discover. Like you said, like you do a marathon, you see people going further, and you're like, I wonder. and then you do it, and then it unlocks a new thing. Like I'm addicted to that cycle in like any area.
That's exactly where I'm at. Like, and it's so funny. I think I found it at about the same time.
Yeah.
Like my mid 30s, early 30s maybe. But to me, I think that's what it all boils down to. And I think the reason why some people do and some people don't is mindset.
Totally.
Like, if you don't have a growth mindset and you've got a fixed mindset, like that's the end of the road for you, because you don't even ask that question.
Totally.
Like, and that's where running, in particular, like the whole idea of ultra running, like really like unlocked my brain to start seeing that in everything.
Yes.
And I'm about to be 40 in a couple days.
Hey.
And I don't feel like an old man. Right. I don't feel like an old man. Like I run around and play with my kids, and like I haven't been to jiu-jitsu in a minute, but I could.
Are you still training with Engel?
Yeah, I haven't been in a minute because of the way the business has been going, doing this, and the kids.
But it's still the fact that you're even exploring that. Like, when did you start?
I'm gonna go back 6 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, how many people do you know turn 30 and then they basically start to die? It's like, it's a slow deterioration.
Well,
of
and
like
that's why, though. I think it's because the lack of movement, lack of movement, and understanding that like your body's gonna do what you ask of it. So if you're not asking it to do anything,
it won't do nothing.
It's gonna sit there and wither away and die on you. And if you want to actually extend your lifespan, like the part of it that matters is when you can actually move around and do stuff, and that's what you should be trying to extend.
Well, they say that there's a correlation between your leg strength and longevity, and one of the biggest factors of that is mobility, right, and then balance. The third most common killer of adults is falling. But there's science that shows beyond the fear of falling, it's more the socialization aspect that starts to really take hold on the aging process. Because the less balanced you are and the less mobile you are, the less likely you are to get up and go do the things that you used to do, whether it's go out to lunch with friends or go grab coffee, and then we become immobile, and then we become lonely, and then loneliness take hold, and then that combo of aging is really what kind of can take us out. We have our two oldest members are 65 and 63, and they're a couple, and they train at 6:30, and they're always like, not apologizing, but you know what I mean? They're not doing the RX movements all the way, although Wade does try. He's like such a little monster. But it's sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we're just old. And I'm like, no, like you guys are the ones that inspire me. Like that is my goal, to be 65 and be up and spry, retired. I don't need to be going to the gym at 6:30, but those are my people. And I'm busting chops of like 25-year-olds and like keeping up with them and moving within that. Like I gain more inspiration from them than like some of the fire breathers that are like 25 and like ripping on movements or have insane strength. It's like that longevity and that mental capacity to stay in it, like that's the secret sauce. That's the goal.
Oh, for sure.
That was the biggest mistake I had during that marathon. Is I was coming up mile 18. We were going up a hill in Lavelle Canyon, and the guy that was right next to me was an older gentleman, probably in his 60s or later. And like, I wish I would have talked to him. I didn't, because then I also looked and saw his badge. He had a 50K badge on. So when we crossed the line together, I crossed the line because I was dead. He crossed the line, went to his go bag, grabbed a couple of things, and he still had I think 6 more miles to go knock out.
Gosh.
So I was just like, all right, he can do it.
Right?
I can do it.
It's inspiring.
Oh, that's one of the reasons why I grabbed that. It's like I went and found a 50K, I think, 2 months later.
That's so cool,
dude. That was the thing that the book Born to Run got me like super hyped on, is hearing about ultras. And at that point, it was still like not known at all, really, to most people, unless you had read that book. Most people didn't even know it existed. But you hear about all these older people finish on 100-mile races. And then you go to a couple ultras for the shorter distances, and you see that like the majority of the field is over 40, you know? It's not a bunch of young kids. And there's a lot of people in their 60s and 70s finishing 100-mile races. Yeah. It's like, oh, like, and
what's
combined
possible
with having read that book and hear the theories on like the human body being so special at running and movement, and like we all limit our belief on what we can actually do.
Totally.
It's like you go see it done. Like the Javelina 100, the first one I went to, there was like a 14-year-old kid that finished and like someone in their 70s. Like it was
savage.
Like, it was like crazy to see them cross the finish line. It's like, holy crap.
That's been a cool thing with our gym lately too, is I would say like our demo is always whatever phase we're in, I think we kind of naturally have people that gravitate towards us, right? So when we were in our mid-20s and like just partying and trying to be savage in the gym and like taking everything like to the limit, right? we had a bunch of fire breathers, and it was all about like maxing out all the time and just like total like meathead city, right? And now
going to win CrossFit games.
Yeah, I mean, it's like just like even if we weren't trying to be competitive, like on the competitive circuit, it's like the level of competitiveness in any class. Yeah. Just because the nature of being in your mid-20s and probably like better joints at that point too. But it's been really inspiring because now I would say our gym on average is like 30s to like mid-40s, like early 50s. And it's so cool because watching as the demo has gotten older, now I have a plethora of people to look up to where it's like, man, this person has 3 kids. They're a doctor. They're working 80 hours a week. They run their own business. Like they're doing this, like, and they're still in here. And to see a collection of people that have that mentality and that power of proximity of like what you get from working out with like-minded people that generationally span, like I would say on the older side, right? Because what's that stat? Like after 30, 95% of people never sprint again or something like that.
Yeah, that's a crazy one.
Like think about that as a runner. I mean, I think about, I'm not even a runner, but we obviously run quite a bit in our modality. And I think to never run after 30, like never?
Sounds like if there's a zombie apocalypse,
well, that's
I'm running the country.
That's right.
That's the scary thing to me about the younger generation, because like you definitely see people our generation that are being more mindful of this and trying to teach to their kids and stuff. But on a whole, how many more young people are, like you were talking about the, you know, not being physical, not being social, so you just sit inside and don't do anything. How many young people are just sitting in front of a screen all day?
Well, you know, now it's 50% of teens are facing obesity. 1 in 4 children are facing obesity.
Yeah, how many hours a day should they be outside playing?
It's crazy.
That they're sitting in front of the screen?
You don't gotta tell me I'm like the homeschool crunchy mom.
Yeah,
that's like a big part of it. It's like having a boy. I mean, I don't think that I ever like intentionally thought we were going to homeschool long term in the beginning. I had just worked corporate so long that I had come home one time and my nanny knew, you're right, I could do something. And me being me, I was instinctually like, no, you can't. And she was so gentle and so kind to like, she could have just let that go, right? Like she could have just let me believe my own lie. And she so gently looked at me and was like, he's been able to do it for like a month. And I was heartbroken because you guys knew my mom. I had a stay-at-home mom, and she was at everything. And while I don't know that I ever even envisioned like being home all the time, because I thought I was doing the right thing. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was good at everything that I did. I had like all the shiny accolades that you would possibly need from a corporate perspective and a pretty resume and all these things. I was making great money, more than I even knew had time to spend, but I didn't even know my kids.
Yeah.
And that stung so bad. And then 3 days later, shortly thereafter, the startup I was working for like completely imploded essentially. And so for the first time since the time I was 14, I was unemployed. And that had never happened. I mean, I started working for my dad 8th grade summer, and I'd always been employed since. And I remember O looked at me and told me to just take a minute, because he's like, this is not really the life that I intended for us. I was leaving a training at 5 a.m., so I'm leaving the house like 4:15, training at 5, done at 6, in my office by 7, pulling into the driveway, still on the phone for like, you guys know the move, right? Oh, yeah. Park in front of the house, just wrap it up, and you're still on the phone for like 15 minutes, and your significant other's on the inside. They can hear your truck outside. Your kids can hear your car outside, but you're just trying to wrap it up. And I would get in at like 6:30, do the fastest dinner possible, bathe them, and put them to bed. And I just thought, like, that's not what I had signed up for. So when we started homeschooling, it was because I thought, it was like, you're right, it was pre-K. So I was like, oh, how hard can it be? Like shapes, colors, like maybe they'll eat some Play-Doh, make it like a real school experience. And then shortly through that process, just watching and learning specifically about how boys learn and how boys develop. And especially, I think, looking at the way our country has really gut punched men and gut punched masculinity and the development of men. It was such an important thing for me to set him on the right path, because most people's self-view comes from the reflection of how they get treated. Yep. And if you're a super active boy who doesn't want to sit at 6 or 7 years old for 8 hours a day, you're labeled as you misbehave, or you're handsy, or they're not paying attention. They have ADD, ADHD.
Yeah, medicate that kid.
And we medicate them, where it's like, you look at the science on how, boys and girls develop. That's like a very unpopular topic either, right? Like, we're all the same. No, we're not. No, we're not. Biology shows that we're not. Yeah. And our development isn't. And the more that I started doing my own research on that and then also seeing it in my own kid, I like turned super on fire for it. And so now we're like fully committed for like as long as possible to like keep him homeschooled. But it was specific for like the energy level of him because that's how it started. Because he's me. He's like more active than me. And I was always like a hyper ass kid.
Yeah.
My dad just, I mean, luckily I had a little bit more of an attention span, but I remember school was hard for me even. And I was a straight A student because I was competitive, not because I was actually interested in the information.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I just have to regurgitate this and it's effort. Okay, I can do that. But the interest of sitting and like learning wasn't there until after college even, where I was like, oh, I forgot I liked learning. I forgot. I was really good at school. I was a straight A student all the way up to my junior year of college. And then I realized, like, you know, degrees are degrees, and no one's asking if you have straight A's. And I was like, oh, I should probably relax a little bit. Like, the insanity. Yeah,
that's funny. Is like, I mean, we went to school together from what, like third grade on?
Yeah.
Well, up until high school, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, my struggle was the boy struggle. Like,
yeah.
If I did my work, I'd get an A.
Yes.
I had to do the work.
Yes. Totally.
And I had that problem all the way up until my junior year. And then something clicked where I got straight A's my junior and senior year because I actually just did all my work.
Because grades are about effort. It's not about intelligence.
Yeah.
Like I just had, O and I always joke around that we're like the neighborhood parents in our neighborhood. There is a plethora of kids that are always out playing like a proper neighbor should be. So it's a blessing they're outside. But a lot of them are at the age that they should have supervision, and there's never any. So O and I are the two that pull out our chairs and are, don't kick the ball near the cars, don't hit this, don't whatever, like neighborhood parents. And I was talking with one of our neighborhood kids, and he's 9. And I was asking how school's going, because they're always curious, like why Uriah is homeschooled. And so when Uriah asks questions about normal school, I never say anything negative about public school.
Yeah.
Because I think there's benefits to both in either way, right? Yeah. It just depends on your family and your values and your time and all of those things. But I always have him ask his peers, like ask them what they think about school. Ask them what they think, right? So it comes like straight from the mouth. But anyways, I was talking with one of the boys, he's 9, and he had gotten great grades up until this year. And him and his teacher, for whatever reason, are not clicking. And his eyes were filling with tears, and he looked at me and he's like, I'm dumb. I'm dumb. I get D's, I get C's. My teacher says this. And this is obviously not all teachers are this way. But I looked at him and I like just looked at him straight in the eye and took the opportunity to like speak some life into him. I was like, baby boy, grades are about effort. They are not a reflection of your intelligence at all. Yep. Like if you don't get that science, then you just got to work a little bit harder. And I just wonder if we change that conversation for kids to understand that it's not a personal reflection of who they are, how it would change for them if it was like understood that it's a work effort thing.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all.
No, not. I mean, you guys are in business. I'm in business. Like we all know that it's not about always following the rules or how somebody else says to do it. Like it's about figuring it out for yourself and also having the desire to learn and to be hungry. Like how many times can you get knocked down and be like, okay, that didn't work. I'm going to learn from that. Yep. Not allow it to make you feel like you're not worthy. And it doesn't mean there aren't moments like when you stub your toe or you make a mistake or it costs you a lot of money or whatever it is.
It's going to be painful.
But it's painful.
As long as you learn something from it, though.
Yes.
And actually apply that to the next iteration, and that's where all the growth is, right?
Totally.
Whether it's running or getting better at CrossFit or whatever it is.
Totally.
It's just...
That's the biggest thing. When we bring anyone in that we've hired that we're training them, is like you're gonna mess up.
Yeah.
Expect that to happen. Like, don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. Like, to be honest, if you're saying that you're installing and you haven't messed anything up, I'm gonna worry.
Yes.
I'm gonna wonder like, oh, so you're just all of a sudden you're just amazing.
Yeah.
Which, if so, cool.
But great, but
experience tells me that it's absolutely bullshit.
Yeah.
You are going to mess up. The only way you can get better is by messing up.
Yeah.
And that part, I want you to keep trying. And when you do mess up, recognize that you messed up. Ask some questions.
Totally.
Like, if this keeps happening to me, what am I doing wrong? Like, be curious. That's the biggest thing is be curious. I'm fine with you making the mistakes, like in the material being scrapped. Like, that's already baked into the fact of we're training you, you're an apprentice. Like, I already know that I'm going to eat so much in material when it comes down to it, I'm fine with it because I know what return I'm going to get from it. I know how much more experience you're going to have, and I can send you out into the work field even faster to where I don't have to worry about you on the job site. I'd rather you mess up here in-house on this window over and over again and then be curious of why something keeps going wrong.
And the ownership part, just the ownership part. I think like in anything, whether it's business, personal relationships, the ability to come to someone and say, hey man, I messed up. And owning that, the freedom it gives you. It's always so scary, right? Like you remember being a little kid and like messing up and like being terrified of telling your parents.
Oh, yeah.
But it's such a true thing. Like if you were able to go and say, hey, I made a mistake and it was a big one. There's still consequences, but the freedom that you also get as an individual to own it and to let it go, it's like, A, the growth, and B, the freedom is so worth it. And whenever I was managing large teams in corporate, that was always my thing. I was like, as your manager and the leader, I was always the director, kind of like the VP over the departments I was working in the last few years. And I would always tell my team, like, hey, we're in creative marketing. Like, we are going to make mistakes. It's all not going to work. Yeah. And if it is, then we're playing it safe and we're not being innovative. So we need to be able to stub our toe. But if you can't own it, that's where you get in trouble. You're never going to get in trouble if you tried something new. You did the pre-planning before, right? Like you weren't reckless in the action. You planned before, you did your due diligence, and it just didn't land. Then it just didn't land. But then own it. And then I'm happy to go sit at the board of directors meeting or the director meeting or whoever we're sitting with and say, our team did this and it's a we thing and we own it. Top down, I'll take the face punch or whatever it is, or the one throat to choke. That was always my favorite.
Well, this is the thing schools need to be teaching over, you know, you got a bad grade, so you're dumb.
Yes.
You know, that's what I love about what you guys are doing, because I follow your guys' social and I see what you're doing with your kids, and it's freaking amazing. They're little rock stars.
What's funny is I get more DMs of hate around it than I ever do about encouragement. It's mostly moms, but it's always this curiosity on whether or not our kids are going to be social or whatnot. And I always joke where I'm like, listen, weird people raise weird kids. That's kind of how that works. If they do as you do, done not as you say, and you have to be intentional. Like we're in a co-op. We also in a gym called Social City. Like if you ever come to our gym and our kids are there, they're an extension of the owners. Yeah. They're greeting people and saying hello and high-fiving. And I think that's like you either instill them or not. But
those lessons that they're learning are way more valuable than anything they're going to get
I think so,
school.
too.
The cool thing is, though, is I think you can get it both ways.
Totally.
Right? Like, so it's like there's not one way that's right or wrong. But I think that's the more important thing we need to teach our kids. Circling back to the hiring thing.
Yeah.
If more children out there were having these things be the focus on their education and their younger years of what's important about learning, it'd be a lot easier to hire people.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, because those are the things you're looking for, right?
Or business owners. Like, it's like even, so we did a project with the Uriah this summer. We were walking in Target and, you know, they had the little like sun tea little gallon things, or what are those called? Little like gallon dispensers, little iced tea things. Walking by, he's like, oh, can we buy one and do a lemonade stand? I was like, for sure. And we made it a homeschool project. So we went down and I was like, okay, if that is $5, you're going to take a loan from mommy. Okay. So I'm going to loan you $5. It was funny because I think it was like leftover Jocko Fuel greens. And I think I had like literally like maybe a scoop left, not enough for a gallon.
Yeah.
And I had done it and was so excited because he had got his $5 loan and he had his materials and he went to the gym and he was selling watered down greens, but it was like a lemonade stand, right? And we just had like cups at the gym or whatever. And he made a sign and he's selling to the noon class, and bless our noon class because, you know, it's watered down greens. They're basically paying for water at this point. But one of our members like gave him a $50 bill. And so we could have stopped it there because it's like if at our age, right? Like when we were kids, you give me a $50, the lemonade stand's closed. I'm closed shop for the day. We're done. But we took it because Murph was coming up, which is the Memorial Day workout where it's always on Memorial Day. It's a mile run buy-in, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, mile run buyout. And with a weight vest if you're doing it RX. So it's a grueling workout for anyone. It's at least an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So we're like, okay, this is perfect. Now you have like you're going to give mommy $5.25 because there's interest on top of your loan. And then we're going to take him, we're going to reinvest in the business. And we took him, he bought some electrolytes, bought a second canister, made signs, and then bought his own little cups. And then he set up an electrolyte stand, and it was donations only, right? So it was all about customer service. And so as people are coming in from Murph, he's high-fiving them, cheering people on, handing out electrolytes, the whole thing. Kid made $175 that day. And then we were just teaching him, like, okay, you can take this and reinvest. And if you save up to $100 and you keep it, we'll match it, because that's how it goes. And I just think the value in even that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how to take money and make a little bit of money. Like, O's always been that. Like, I always joke he was like a natural entrepreneur even when he was a kid, because he could look at like hubcaps wheels and he'd probably polish them up and turn around and sell them, or he would buy motorcycle parts used and polish them and sell them, because there's always a way to make money.
Oh, yeah.
And just instilling that in a young kid, let alone a young male, I just think is invaluable. To not have the fear that it's like, hey, it may work out, it may not, like, but I'm going to reinvest in myself. That's where I start. I don't start by necessarily investing in other things. Like, I'm going to take the gamble on me.
Yeah.
It took me into my 30s. I worked corporate for 15 years, and now I have a consulting agency I do on the side, but I would have never had the guts to do that in my 20s, even though I would have been capable. And I probably had like hot contacts at the time, but I was like, oh no, I'm good enough to be headhunted by these big corporate companies, but I couldn't possibly make it on my own.
Yeah.
And that's like an invaluable confidence level, you know?
Yeah, that's what I want more children to be learning. That's what I'm trying to constantly instill in my older ones. I've probably overspoiled them. I'm constantly like trying to encourage them to do stuff like that, or like come down for the summer. You guys can do social media or whatever. Yeah. Now we've got a full-time position taking that spot up. But I'm sure he could use a hand this coming summer.
You know?
Well, I got to get my son to understand that there's steps to get to the top.
Yes.
He already is like, I'm the best. I'm like, but
I mean, good thing he's got some confidence, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm trying to circle it and give it.
I wonder where he gets that from.
No.
Well, I'd sit there and explain to him, like, buddy, this is where I started. I picked up that trash.
Yes.
I made sure I was the best at picking up that trash.
Isn't it funny when you could literally hear your dad falling out of your mouth or your kids, and you're like, oh man, there it is.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
Oh man. The shop is the one that makes me laugh every time. Because if I walk into the shop and it's a mess, I'm like, I gave him so much shit about yelling at
generational
us
triggers
for being trash and stuff. And it's like, I always was like, whatever. And now I'm like,
it's the simplest task in the world. Why aren't you doing it? Like, you peeled the window right here. There's a trash can. Right there.
But it's like, I
right
also
there.
like, I don't want to be a jerk. So I'll just like pick stuff up and like, because I know that I bitched about that so much. So I get the installer side of it when you're busy and getting stuff done. I totally get it, but at the same time, it drives me bonkers.
But I will add our twist on it now though is, hey, I need to be able to capture content at any time. The cleaner this content is, the more leads I can get, the more sales that can be made, the more cars you can tint. This only benefits you. Back with our dad. No one was seeing the trash on the ground.
It was just the principle.
It was the
way you
principle.
do the small things, the way you do the big things.
Do the small things. It matters. It does matter.
Believe me,
he was right about that.
It's just funny though, right? Like I'm so much like my dad, I think in general. But then when I hear things fall out of my mouth, where I'm like, there he is. I mean, I joke though too, because man, I don't know how many times over the years I've called my dad and been like, hey, you were so right. I'm so sorry. Like at 16, he always told me, you're going to turn 16 and you're going to think you know it all. And then you're going to turn 18 and look back at 16 and be like, man, I didn't know anything. And then you're going to turn 21 and you'll look back at 18 and be like, man, I didn't know anything. And on and on and on. And then I think he said by the time you're 35, you like kind of just realize you know nothing. Yeah. And you're willing to accept that you know nothing. Mm-hmm. And every one of those phases at different points, I've called him and been like, hey, remember that time? Whew, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I had no idea you were right. And it's kind of become this ongoing joke of like every milestone birthday or whatnot. It's usually a phone call like, hey, Dad, just one more time. Just want you to know you were right about even the things I didn't want you to be right about, because there are some generational truths that like doesn't matter what culture says or time changes. There are some generational truths when it comes to business, the way you treat people, honesty, those things that it's like you can see time and time again it plays out, and you're like, there are some good just old-fashioned values that just stand the test of time that are now becoming kind of obsolete, which is a scary thing. But
at the same time, I see a lot of people, I think, especially our age, our generation's a weird one because it's like no internet, then the internet kind of, if you're willing to wait 30 minutes and four phone numbers later to have basically a chat room available. To like where we're at now and seeing more people being mindful of that, like it makes me optimistic that like good ideas and information are spreading in this really cool way right now where you don't even got to be preachy about it, but the way people are just showcasing what they're doing and sharing their experience, you're getting access to so many different people's perspective. And like even being able to see speeches of like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan talking about how they became the best. Yeah. And it was like through not being the best, sucking, and then realizing that they just had to outwork everybody, you know?
Totally.
The access that everybody has to that kind of wisdom that ultimately once you see it play out enough times, you realize like, okay, there are no shortcuts. You're going to have to work hard and you can grow and achieve and become better as long as you're not so cocky and arrogant to think that like this is it. This is all.
You have to like get so comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's like all the adages, all the sayings are so famous because they're so true. And I think it just takes the wisdom of experience to realize that they're there. Like wisdom is at your fingertips. It's just almost like having to mature past the point to realize like they're adages for a reason. There are certain sayings that have been true time and time again. And the same principles. It doesn't matter what inspirational guru you listen to, whether it's like Atomic Habits or you're reading Goggins' book or you're listening to Brene Brown. It's the principles are kind of all the same where it's like get comfortable getting uncomfortable and be okay sucking at something. Like if you want to be good or you want to expand past your potential, you've got to be very comfortable with the idea of effort and with the idea of being uncomfortable and not being good at something. I think it's funny because as parents, we're always asking our kids to get uncomfortable. You want them to try ballet. You want them to try baseball. You want them to try an art class. They're going into a new school, a new program, whatever it is. It's like we kind of have that. We expect them to be so comfortable being uncomfortable, like, go, do this. But there's this age in us at some point as adults where we just think that that's like a skill we don't have to do anymore. Like how often people just settle in and then never think that they even should be required to do that. But yet you watch the way that you raise children, and that's just the nature of growth, right? Anything that they're going to do is new. And we're like edging them into it. But then there's a certain point for some adults that it's like, just like, nah.
I think a big part of that is the trap of the education system. Like if you think about it, like for the last century in America, it's like go to school and then go to college and then you got a career. Totally. And to me, that shows like an end point in education and learning. And it's like, so you have this idea in your head at mass like you learn at school.
Do you remember that feeling when you were? Yeah, it's like I think everyone remembers like college for me. I was like, I never have to take a test again.
That's the biggest trap of college in my mind is just this idea that that's like the end point of learning.
For sure.
It's like no. Whether you stop at high school or college, like you should always be learning. Otherwise, you're dying.
Yes.
Like at the end of the day, you can keep learning and keep growing, and that's where that wisdom comes from. Like
totally.
Like I totally have those moments all the time. Like you know, especially about to be 40. Definitely.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's weird because I definitely feel younger and
hey, Ricky, respect your elders here.
And healthier than I've been pretty much at any point in my life. Like this last couple of years of actually keeping the weight off and for the most part staying in a zone that I'm really comfortable in. And just I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like I definitely don't feel like I'm.
My dad has always said that. He's always like, I mean, just at different moments. Like he's 64 now, about to be 65, and he always says like, I don't mentally feel that way. Like my body does, but that point of view in your brain, I don't think ever changes in terms of like, at some point your body passes where the mind feels. Even if you're not necessarily growing, I think even. Right, the mind will still age, but I don't think that you feel the physiological impact of age mentally sometimes as much as you do physically. But it is such a crazy thing that, like, I remember it was 75 hard for us to unlocked me remembering how much I love to read because I had to read so much in college and then when I was in beverage, it was a lot of like, market research or reading emails or whatnot. So when I had free time, I surely was not like picking up a book to like take a bubble bath in the brain. That was not something that seemed remotely appealing. And then we did 75 Hard like 2 or 3 years ago or whatever it was. And it was that consistency of reading through a book and having to pick a book when you didn't really feel like reading or you were too tired, whatever it was. I looked at Omar and I was like, I totally forgot. I love learning. I was a workhorse in school, so I always got good grades because once I knew it was effort and not like natural intelligence, I was like game on because I was competitive. But I actually always loved being a student. I always loved learning new information. It always felt very empowering. And then I got into a specialty, and then it was like that necessity to learn. And so I think that kind of dimmed the light a little bit of like what just called the nature of what college was, and then learning the specialty in my own field. But that was for work. It wasn't the same as like learning for pleasure or for personal development, and then unlock that. And it's like now I joke our house looks like a library. We have like so many books. I'm like running out of places to put them, and we'll take stuff to the gym and whatnot. But I'm like, I really forgot how much I love that. So with homeschooling right now, it's like that's one of the biggest focuses for me with Uriah. I'm like, I just want him to love reading. I don't really even care what he's reading right now. Do you love it? Because if you love it and you learn that no one can keep anything from you, that if you want to learn something, you can pick up a book, whatever it is. You want to learn about planes? Read a book.
Yep.
You want to learn about this? Read a book. You can do your own research, like especially now, the access that you have.
Well,
to
that's the crazy thing to me is like, to me, reading is so impactful and powerful because of the main thing it's actually doing is putting new ideas in your head, right? And like then you get those new ideas in, you're gonna have new stuff that comes out. That's where we're like super spoiled, and we're right on the edge of it, where I don't think most people realize it. Because I don't think reading's awesome, and I'm not saying don't read, but like we have like reading 2.0 in the fact that I can put on someone's audiobook at a higher speed. Or a podcast.
Two times.
Like,
two times on the.
I'll go like 1.5. 2 sounds weird to me, but like either way, you can cut down the time that it takes to get that information in your head. We're almost like plugged into the matrix. Like
I mean, we literally are.
Like,
that's like
it's just without the jack in your head.
Close.
It's literally just the jack in your ear.
Yeah.
Because if I can listen to something, and just like reading's a skill, I think listening to audiobooks and podcasts is a skill too. So now you can increase that speed. You can get the information in faster.
Yeah.
And there's just more and more and more hyper-specific stuff coming out there. That's where like health and nutrition and fitness is such an awesome space. I think that
confusing too, because there's so much information.
There's so much coming out so hard. But what's really cool is the power the average person has right now to like, if anything, start there. Like go down that rabbit hole, because if you can improve that physical fitness of your body, your mind's gonna follow. And where else in your life is that gonna help? Like start there, and everything else will stem out from there.
Totally. I also think that your physical fitness is the one thing you can't buy. And I know there's like, I think there's a bunch of memes and stuff that kind of talk about this, where it's like like muscle is the one currency you can't cheat. You can't steal it. You can't have it surgically done. You have to earn it. And I think that deposit, whether it's every day or that consistency, like that level of self-respect changes a person. It's way more between the ears than the physical changes, but it's the currency that you're depositing every day for yourself that you can't cheat it.
Yep.
And it's a sign to everyone else too of your level of self-respect. And I think there's something that kind of trickles out from that as well. Like fitness for me is almost more for my mental health than my physical. Physical is obviously a huge part of it. But always jokes around. I always refer to this Joe Rogan thing where Joe Rogan talks about energy levels of human beings and how some people are lap dogs and some people are hunting dogs and they need to be ran. And figuring out for yourself like what level of activity, because everyone needs some level of activity, but maybe what your output is a little different. Like I joke that I don't behave if I don't work out. I get way more snippy. I'm like more tense. I am a dog that needs to be ran. I have to have that output for myself to feel good.
Yeah.
Right. And being aware of that, like what it's done for me in that area has been huge. But then also as someone that grew up with like really bad self-esteem issues and undiagnosed eating disorders and stuff, doing the fitness, doing the thing consistently has been that discipline muscle for myself to realize like that I'm worthy and that I've earned this and my body's a gift. And whether I'm bigger or smaller or stronger or weaker or whatever, it's like the movement is a gift and that I'm depositing into myself because I can't cheat it. Like, I can't go to a doctor and get a pill to make it better. Like, you don't grow muscle any other way than earning it.
Absolutely.
And that practice has been so powerful to me, and like the self-worth aspect, in the discipline aspect, and then how that trickles out everywhere else. And then also seeing in the reflection of the way people treat you when they know that you're a disciplined person. Because I think a lot of times when I show up places, if anyone knows me, whether it's like following my social or knowing me personally, it's like they know that that disciplined side of me is a big part of who I am. And that I'm naturally greeted, I think, with a different level of respect in some areas, knowing that I'm a disciplined person. And I remember kind of feeling that shift when it happened and being like, oh, wow, like people are actually paying attention to the things that we're doing, and it's a sign of self-respect, and therefore I'm almost being treated a little differently. And I don't think it was aesthetic driven as much as it is that like, oh, you know, this person is consistent. There's just this natural level of like physical respect we have for people that like put in the work, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I couldn't agree more with that when it comes down to it. Paying that daily due when it comes down to it has improved myself in every aspect I can think I could humanly imagine. And everyone's always been questioned too, like the running, like how early I get up and stuff. I'm like, if I don't do it, yes, sure, I've slept some more, but I am a lot less productive.
Totally.
Have to get it in. Have to get a run in. Have to do something. When I'm actually extremely regimented, it's cold plunge to start today, and then run right after. And like I know there's a difference. Like I've gotten lazy over the past like 2 months because I just came off a training block, and it's usually what happens. I think I was better with this time off the training block than I've done the last couple times.
But once you've had a taste of it, you know. I think that's always the thing too. Is I always tell people, I'm like, it's always worth pushing yourself at least one time in an area, like just that what if, like exploring that what if, because if you do feel good, if you've done the thing, right, you've shown up consistently with your training, with your cold plunging, your nutrition, whatever it is, and you know you've gotten a taste of what it feels like to be on and to be invested in yourself, you always know the recipe to get back because you've had a taste of it. And it's easier, I think, to then come back to it and to stay consistent because you've done it and you've done the thing and you're like, I know what it feels like to not have done this. I know what it's like to neglect myself, to not do the thing, to not whatever, versus the times that I'm showing up for myself consistently, getting up when your alarm clock goes off and it's still dark outside and the moon's out. There's something that changes in you when you show up for that appointment for yourself. Because that's how I started training at 5. I was never a morning person. I always worked late by the nature of being in beverage. I was out partying quite late for many years as well. But it's one of those things where it's like when I started showing up and my alarm would go off at 3:45 and I'm getting up, it was the appointment I was honoring for myself. Because if it was a work appointment, you bet your butt I'm going to be there. Like I'm not showing up. If I had to be at work at 5, I'm there because I'm a workhorse. But why wouldn't I respect myself at that level? Like, why wouldn't I respect that appointment for myself? And I think if people started to reframe,
look at it.
Right? Because if it was for anyone else, if it was an appointment for your job, whether you work for yourself, it's for a client, or you're working for a company, most people would show up. And that's an outside person. So you're not willing to show up for the person that needs it the most. As soon as I started like making it an appointment like that, my entire fitness journey changed. And it was just that mentality of like, can I be accountable to myself because I'm worth it? Right? Like if you can't even have that level of self-respect, why do you expect anyone else to show you respect?
I like that. That's a hell of a way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a hard truth. It's like it's true.
No, but that's the biggest thing. It's a hard truth. It's 100% true.
Yeah.
How are you going to show up for everything else, but you're not going to show up for yourself?
Mm-hmm. And it's hard. I mean, it's I think the biggest hurdle, right? And then people. It's the same thing with food. Like food is not complicated. Nutrition isn't complicated. Yes, there's a lot of information out there if you're looking for the fastest track. But the reality is if you're eating single ingredient foods that are whole foods that don't have an ingredient list and are not a food product, you're going to be healthier. It's our relationship with food that's hard. I always tell people when they come to nutrition stuff, I'm like, food's not complicated. It's your relationship with food that's complicated. And if you can own that, explore it, and figure it out, because everyone's triggers are different, whether it's I'm the mom that's too busy, I don't have time to prep for myself, or it's the element of convenience, or it's, I don't like to eat those things, or whatever it is. It's a relationship with yourself. It's the dynamic that you have with food. It's not the food. You're paying me for the accountability and maybe some guardrails, but it's like it's not complicated.
Yeah.
food marketing and food product and trying to eat within the ultra processed food dynamic and calling it healthy. Yeah, that's complicated because that's your relationship with food.
Yeah.
But it says it's keto friendly.
It's keto. Well, that for me has been huge. The
cuisine.
Labels. Dude, I mean, I was in beverage for 15 years and worked on the labeling, and I remember that was when I started to wake up, because when we were looking at certain labels for one of the brands I worked with, I was in charge of kind of going through that process. And then when I learned the difference between things that we were just putting as they were marketable looking labels, but they weren't an actual certification. And then also even going through the certifications and realizing kind of what garbage that was. I remember walking through a Smith's and just, I felt like the scales had fallen from my eyes, and the way I was looking at food labeling changed forever, because I was like, this is all BS.
Yeah.
It's this, and this. And this is years before any of the food movement that's like become a thing now. It was such a harrowing experience to realize that people are trying to do the right thing, right? But it's very hard to do the right thing if you're shopping in the aisles.
We live in 1984. Like,
dude, literally.
Like 100%. Like, it's a lot easier to just stay plugged into the matrix.
Yes.
It's like Cypher wanting to just get plugged back in to taste a steak again.
Yes.
Like, it's a lot harder to admit that
Yeah.
how many things around you have been alive for decades now. The food pyramid.
Oh, dude.
You know,
Cheeseburgers are delicious, man.
the food label,
Pharma,
all
all of
of
it.
that stuff, right? It's like to actually like dig into it and realize like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. This has all been marketing, just propaganda and lies
Yeah.
for decades and decades now.
And
Like our house lived on freaking, I can't believe it's not butter or whatever.
Dude, spray butter?
Yeah, like so.
Good old
like,
spray butter?
I remember making brownies with you guys, with
Yes.
your mom, where
Yeah.
we put vegetable oil in, as that's what we were
Dude.
making the brownie mix with, because that's what the
Crisco.
backs of the box says. Yeah, coat that thing in Crisco and like.
Way different.
But like that awareness, that's the cool thing that's happening right now. Though,
Yes.
is at least because of the internet and the fact that there's still a couple free platforms and like information can spread. There is, I think, a bigger movement than ever before, and people.
Well, there
realize,
has to be.
yeah.
I mean, at this point, we're
Look at all the disease.
it's chronic disease. All starts with like the metabolic health,
Oh,
and we over 70% of people, they say males or 18 and over are unfit to serve in the military. 76% or something like that. It's insane. It's like 1 in 4 women have autoimmune disease now. They're expecting 1 in 2 people to have cancer. And it all starts with our metabolic health. Yeah. And yet people want to put their head in the sand, and it's at a point now where they can't. I mean, for me, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I was diagnosed probably 2 years officially, but I saw it in my hands as it started to happen, because it always starts to attack your small joints. But what I didn't know is the impact that it has on your entire system. It's like the joint pain is manageable, but it's like I end up with these flu-like symptoms. And also autoimmune stuff is so bio-individual that it's like you try to go to a doctor for support. Half the time, if you don't want to do the medication, they don't want to talk to you. I've learned that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what can we look at lifestyle change? Like, no one looked at my diet. I was at one point, before I figured out what was wrong, I was puking blood like once a month, like having these episodes where I thought I was getting the flu, and then I'm throwing up and I'm puking blood, and I end up going to a GI doctor. I have endoscopy, colonoscopy. They're like, oh, it's probably ulcers. No ulcers. Go to get a second opinion. Not once did someone ask me my stress level, how much I was sleeping, or what I was eating. Not once. But it was all related to the stomach.
Yeah.
And so when I finally asked the last GI doctor that I saw, I was like asking this question, and her response was, most people aren't willing to make any dietary or lifestyle changes, so we don't even go that route. Her advice to me was to take Miralax the rest of my life, and I was like 35 at the time. And then I ended up getting with a naturopath. I was having adrenal failure, and so that was what all the flu-like symptoms were. And then with my postpartum hormonal shift that happened with Selah, that's kind of what pulled the trigger with my RA, because it's a genetic disease, but it's like the impact that it's had on my entire system. It's like a shock collar around food. So I always tell people, I'm like, man, like I eat the way I eat because I have no choice. I'm at a point, it's not a choice. The impact on my system, if I eat ultra-processed foods, alcohol, too much sugar, gluten, pasteurized dairy, it could be the difference of me being in a flare for 36 hours, like bedridden, can't get out. If I thought the ER was going to help, I'd go to the ER, but I've done that, 7 times over the course of this, and get charged a lot of money for a pain pill I'm not going to take, and am sent home after like an IV. So I always try to the reason why I try to share so much on my platform a lot of times is I'm like, 1 in 4 women are facing this now. 1 in 50% chance if they're a couple that one of you is going to experience cancer. It's all preventative.
Yep.
That's the thing that's so scary. Everything that we're facing is preventative. Food is medicine.
Yeah, dementia, all of that.
Yeah, type 3 diabetes is what they're calling dementia now. And then we try to use the excuse of, well, we grew up and ate it, so it must be okay. And while it wasn't okay for what we were eating in the 90s, I mean, in
our
reality,
generation's going to have even worse
100%.
statistics of all that stuff because it was like, that was when
that was
really
the introduction
became
of it,
normalized.
right?
Yeah.
It also is in line with the feminist movement about making people feel like this is what is going to be your freedom and allow women to feel like this level of convenience is going to be better. I mean, our generation was one of the first generations where moms were actually working at the level that they were. And it's one of those things where it ended up taking the food system and really hijacking it and turning it into something where it's like, I think they say it's something like 70% of kids' diets are ultra processed foods now.
Yeah, it's probably
70%.
It's probably higher than that. And you look at like all the free school programs, like it drives me crazy because my kids sometimes will not bring their lunch to school, and that's because they're eating the lunch at school because it's basically free to everybody.
Yeah.
If you get but that's all just fast food. Thurman White, which my kids just ended going to, apparently my daughter was just telling me, oh my God, I left them the worst year ever. They're adding a Panda Express into the lunchroom permanently.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
They literally are going to have a permanent spot for Panda. It used to be a once a week thing at the school. Now it's an everyday thing.
Oh,
but
dude.
if you actually look at the food that's even just being served there, not as fast food, it is all still just hyper processed fast food. Yeah.
That's what's scary is
And we're handing it to millions of kids nationwide for free because we got to feed these kids, which I get the intent behind that.
Absolutely.
But we're also that's
poisoning all the kids.
You are poisoning them.
The politics of like the health insurance needs to be fixed. The insurance industry is crumbling because the health of Americans is so bad that everybody's having to go to the hospital for these chronic diseases that didn't exist 40, 50 years ago.
It's crazy.
That's
or you look at
the
like
root of the problem.
Even just like all the neuro diseases, right? Whether you look at like autism and the rate of autism and the way it's increased in the last 50 years, or you look at ADHD or ADD in kids, but then we don't possibly want to look at food coloring in our food. And then they've made it seem as if it's a conspiracy theory that you're talking about this stuff. And it's like, I've seen it with my own kids. Yeah. I mean, I always joke that we're like a little on the extreme side that I joke with Omar that I didn't know that kind of living old school would be so punk rock in like 2024. But I was like, look at us being so punk rock. We have no TV. Like, I basically stay at home with our kids. We homeschool. And it's like, people get up in arms about it. And it's like, we're so extreme. And it's funny because I think back to my like junior high rebel days. And I never thought that like being like cookie cutter kind of trad mom is like now the thing. Right?
That's the 1984 thing, right? Like the mob of people that want to believe in what's being projected to them get angry at anybody that doesn't follow along.
Yeah,
because
it's a weird thing.
An indication to them that they're deciding to live in this fiction of whatever.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy for us. It's like we really did a 180 though in all of it because I was working corporate, doing the boss lady thing, thought I was doing the right thing, making killer money, traveling, like sexy brands, all the stuff. And then ultimately, like behind the scenes, like our whole life was like kind of crumbling. It was nothing that I had signed up for, like both O and I, like the way I was interacting with our kids. And I never thought, out of all three of the sisters growing up, I was always the one that wanted to be a CEO or wanted to be. So it's kind of the joke with my sisters now that it's like, we never thought that you would go so rogue. And I was like, well, maybe that was kind of a sign though. Like the middle child would go rogue. And I just kind of went the polar opposite direction, I think, of where anyone thought I was going to end up, because I was on that path to try to end up at a C-suite working for some big corporation with some business card that was supposed to be impressive at a networking event. That it's like now I look back and I look at my kids and I'm like, dude, you couldn't pay me. I mean, you could pay me on my consulting company, but at a higher rate. That's how we would do that. But it's like, I wouldn't go back to that for the life of me. Like, I found more joy, more peace in just actually getting in touch with the simplest part of my life with my family and, like, cooking my own food and just going to a more simpler life. There's never been more peace. There's never been more joy. And while my health has its own challenges with the autoimmune stuff, it's like I'm on a path to healing. I was on a path to destruction before. I was averaging, like, 3 or 4 hours a night, working like a dog, like stressed all the time, like waking up to the blue light on my phone, going to bed to the blue light on my phone, like just living and dying for somebody else's bottom line. I'm missing all the things that as a female, especially a mother, like were so important to me, like seeing my kids grow up and knowing them. Yeah. And more importantly, them knowing me, like them really knowing who I am. When I lost my mom, I was 19. And I look back now and I'm like, man, I knew her as a mom, but like it would be so different at this age to get to talk to her and like have the filter of being a mom myself, or like being an adult and understanding have their dynamic more who they were. It's like those memories kind of fade in different ways. So for me, it's so important for my kids. Like hopefully, God willing, I live to be a healthy late 80s, early 90s kind of vibe maybe. But I'm like, if not, if life happens or something happens to me, no corporate job can replace like what I get to do. And for them to know me, because even though I lost my mom at 19 because she was home all the time, I still hear her laugh. I still have these little moments that things fall out of my mouth and I'm like, oh, that was my mom. Or little traditions. Like, you remember how my mom would make like carameled apples?
I was just about to ask you, are you doing that for Halloween?
I don't do carameled apples because, caramel's, well, most of it's toxic. But
that was literally the thought on my mind was going and get your mom's caramel apple every Halloween. Like with Halloween coming up was like a must.
But it's, know what it is? It's the sentiment of what she does. Like if you come to my house, I cook as if there's like 20 people coming. Which it's exactly, we had a family of 5, and if you came by cooking dinner, you would have thought we were having like 25 people over. And it's like you were not coming over to the house and not eating. That's like not an option. That is still how our house is. Or if you do come over and eat, I'm trying to send you home with like leftovers and stuff. And I always giggle because I'm like, man, it's crazy because it's like those are definitely the things like from my mom where it's like the Greek mother. It's like, eat, come over. I need to feed you. Let me send you home with a snack. If the kids come over, I love having the nieces and nephews over. And it's like I always try to make whatever that dinner is like something special. If it's a taco night, it's like a taco party. If I'm watching my nephews on Thursday for Gabby and Brian, they're having their 10-year anniversary. And it's like we're doing like octopus pizzas or whatever. And it's like, dude, that's my mom. Like, that's all my mom. Like, like that making – my mom always used to talk about childhood magic. I don't know if you remember that, but she'd always talk about the importance of childhood magic. And I used to get, like so annoyed. I'm like, childhood magic, like whatever. And now being a mom and having kids little, like that are little, I get it. It's like there is something so special when ice cream fixes everything.
Yes.
Right? Or the excitement that it's Christmas or – dressing up for Halloween and what you're going to be. It's so simple. Or I always talk about the first time we took our kids to the ocean, just how miraculous the waves are. And it took me watching Uriah to remember that it's like this heartbeat of earth that comes in and out and in and out. And as adults, we go to the beach, we're not even paying attention, right? Like we're on our phones, taking a selfie, like worried about snacks, whatever. And I'm watching my kid, and he's just these eyes that are so big in this moment. And it's like, dude, that's magic. That's that childhood magic. I always thought she was talking about, I don't know, something a little more corny or whatever, like, okay, mom. But I'm like, dude, that's the magic of kids. And if you can pay attention, it's like they teach you everything.
Oh, yeah.
It's like funny how those things still like come back though, or it's like, oh man, dude, I did turn out like her. I didn't think that was possible.
You ever honking at any of their friends to scare them?
I've only done that one time. And I was telling Omar that story every morning when we would pick up Josh from your guys' house to go to school. He would always walk in front of the Bronco and never the back. And without fail, my mom almost every time would honk the horn, and without fail, he would jump. And I'd always look at him when he get in the car.
It happened a lot. I don't know if it was every day, but it
seemed like
it happened quite a few times.
Enough that you should have learned to go around the back. But I do have this dream because I was into all the old school cars. I do have this dream of like having a Bronco one day.
That Bronco was sweet. You got.
I'm like, I really would love. Like, obviously not the new school Broncos, like an old school 95, 96 Bronco. I was like, if you ever found that and like restored that for me, I would be stoked. I was like, but it'd have to be like bright red so everyone like knew where I was coming because that was such a neat thing.
Yeah, that was
so funny, right?
Or I'd forget my key.
Yeah.
and I'd have to come hang out at your guys' house until somebody else got home.
That probably happened.
It happened a lot. I don't know if it was necessarily like I really forgot all the time, but I get to go hang out with
how some things never change.
I get to go hang out there afterwards instead.
I know, it's so funny too, because I didn't, like, looking back, I didn't realize like what a playground our house was. And I was like, dude, my parents were so strategic because they made the house somewhere where everybody wanted to hang out, because there was the trampoline and the horse and the basketball stuff. And I was like, that's a good strategy. You make your house the hangout house, then you get to like keep an eye on everything. And I never even realized that was happening. Yeah. I was like, I looked at my dad years later. I was like, duly noted.
Yeah, I have to kind of recognize some of that stuff and some of the stuff our parents did.
Totally, because your guys' house was very similar. Your house was always so fun to play at.
They'd have the sleepovers there.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't allowed to go and hang out at certain people's houses, but like other people I was. And like,
don't you get that now?
Yeah, like at the time you didn't.
You're like, you're so judgmental. And now
like I could go to your guys' house. Your guys' house was on the list.
You're 100% right.
Yeah.
You guys, I could go to. I could basically be gone all day at your house, or Kyle's. Like, like it was, and those were both like
Panda was like
2
that
blocks
for me
away.
Too.
Like that, I could go any of those places and just be gone all day, and it was okay, cool.
So funny.
But then there's other people like, no, we're not having a sleepover over there.
And now I look back, and it's so funny because all those people that my dad in particular around girls, like I remember I was like, you are so judgmental. He's like, I don't want you hanging out with that girl. She seems like she's going to be fast. And I was like, Dad, you are so judgmental. And then without fail, came home like, Dad, oh my gosh. Like I couldn't believe like what some of these girls were getting into at the age they were getting into. And I'm like, wow, that wisdom though, definitely changes that filter.
That's why I'm just really glad the girls are in cross country. It's
Heck
great.
Yeah.
Great. Cross country crowd's great. Brooke just went to her first dance ever as a junior.
How was that?
And one of the cross country boys asked her.
Oh.
Yeah. I was.
I was out of town for a wedding.
I was there for her.
So she's getting ready at my parents.
Please note, the record show, Uncle Ricky was there.
So what's so funny is she's at my mom's house for the weekend because they're staying because they have a race the next day. And last minute, this boy asked her, and we had to leave town for a wedding for Nikki's cousin. And I get a call from him. He's like telling me like, all right, I'll be here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm at Mom and Dad's. I'm like, He's like, Brooke's going on a dance. I got to scare this kid.
Attaboy, Ricky. Making me so proud. You know what's so funny is I was talking to my dad on the phone this morning, and I was telling him I was coming on here, and I was like, little Ricky. I was like, he's not little anymore, but he'll always be little Ricky to me. Always.
I ran into your dad not too long ago.
I know that. I know those.
I mean, for sure.
That's never going to go away.
I feel like Allie has that same thing where it's like always the baby.
I do. Anytime I see her, I'm like,
dude, she's about to have her third kid. Surprise gender too, which I'm stoked on. Cool. We did that with Sayla, and it was the coolest experience. So they're having their third baby coming up, and then my stepbrother's getting married in March. So I'm hoping there'll be like more little nuggets coming around, because I'm like the crazy aunt that's like, bring them all over. Like the crazier, the better. I love it though. I love that chaos. I think it reminds me of growing up, and I feel like our houses were very similar, right? Our parents created this environment where it's like your friends. It was great for them to be there, and there was like they were actually connected to kind of what was happening with the group. And I love that feeling of getting to be the parent now and like having our house be this landing spot of like just fun and chaos, and it's a mess, and building forts and like playing wrestling and just kind of all the stuff that reminds me of being a kid, because we don't have a TV at our house, so it's like we got a stair slide, we got a cold plunge. Like, what are we getting into? It's a little different than like
through there. Let's go.
Totally. I mean, just kind of that like what you'd get bored and like talking into a fan, you know, like all the stupid stuff you did as a kid that almost feels like a lost art now because kids don't get bored, you know?
Remember we'd all go hang out in that empty field when we were teenagers, like middle school.
Yes. Oh, gosh. I always think about middle school and think about having a daughter, and I'm like, dear God, like, please, please let her behave.
I've gotten lucky so far. They've both been really, really chill, and they're both in high school. So
good,
dude. Made it through the middle.
London just started.
Nah, London's good.
She
scares everybody else, not me. She's good.
Dude, Sayla scares me a little bit because she's so different, where Uriah is just like me, you know? So it's like I look at him and I feel like I kind of know how to deal with him, but Sayla is like a different animal, and she's so pretty at 4 that I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what is this gonna be like? Like even the boys in the neighborhood are nice to her right now, and I don't even think they really understand why, you know? Like that she's pretty, and I don't think even really understand that dynamic. But like, Sayla, does she need anything? Da 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 da. I'm like, you can just stay over there. like on the other side of the street.
I was at London's game yesterday, and Matthew's playing at the playground with all the other little kids.
Yeah.
And there's probably equal amount of boys and girls, and he is just hanging out with the girls.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
He knows, dude, that's your right. We
like
drive past
built in.
Durango, and he's always like, oh, is that where the pretty girls are? Is that where the pretty girls are?
Took Luke at his first birthday party that he's in kindergarten now, so he went to his first little party that he was invited to. As we had to leave because we were going to Matthews, we were there about 2 hours before Matthews. Like as we're going to leave, a parent pulls up with a little girl that's been in the class. Every single boy, every single boy. Oh my God, she's here. Like even Luke is like they're all of them.
That's hilarious. Isn't it funny to watch it back though?
It was hilarious because to see all the little boys migrate one way, I was like,
so
wow.
funny.
Yeah, that was the dance thing with Brooke did actually for the first time had me like, oh no, this is like real now.
Yeah.
And apparently I'm putting them on blast. No, I'm not gonna say it. Never mind. London comes home from the next weekend. They had a race in Huntington, so it was a team trip to Huntington. And London comes home and she's like, Brooke and Logan were holding hands on the beach.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Like you're entering that phase. Like what
so fun with that.
Now I'm actually starting to get a little, but
it's like you put in the work. I think it's like it's all the beginning, right? Like I
Yeah.
always tell people, like you've got to be so intentional early on and kind of get the guardrails and like get your voice.
That's why I'm kind of
there.
relaxed about it, is because like I know
You
they're
put in the
gonna
work.
make good choices.
Yeah, she's smart.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about her.
So
Thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, for sure. So good talking to you guys, man.
We're definitely gonna have to do this again with
Yeah.
all four of us.
Yeah.
And it'll be down in the studio. That'd be a fun time. And I do agree with the fact that we'll link up with the fact that when this drops, we'll come out.
Oh, for
we'll
sure,
try to
dude.
come out
That'd be
every day,
fun.
Hit up training every morning.
Yeah, dude. That'd be
I'm
fun.
down.
I want to do some running with Omar too.
Yeah, dude, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
He would love that. It's been so cool because actually you guys are, just so you know, like you guys are part of the inspiration of the story. Like you read the Goggins book, and then I remember when he come in and talked to you guys, and just like even knowing someone that's done that kind of distance. It's different than watching people do it, but like having met someone that's like doing it and how you guys were so encouraging on it, he's like, maybe I can. So it's been such a cool thing, you know?
that's
We'll have to do
dope.
like a little fitness exchange, like go on a run and do that. And then you guys can come in and do what we do. We'll go on like a longer run with
And then
y'all.
we'll take you over to the academy and teach you
teach me how to tip.
Yeah.
There you go.
There it
I
is.
love
Just
it,
set that up.
dude.
All right. Well, you guys know how this works. So subscribe, follow along. We appreciate all the support. Have any questions, anything you guys want us to talk about, you know what to do. So hit us up in the comments, send us an email, hit us some DMs, whatever works.
Yes, thank you. He said everything I wanted to say.
Have a good one.
Bye.